Hi, this is Greg from Greg's Bass Shed. Welcome to the lesson. This is a follow-up lesson from last week's lesson number 39, how to play the Game of Thrones theme on the bass. So there's the accompaniment part as well, and that's what I'm going to look at today. So there's a really great bass line for part 2 especially of the song, etc, etc. So there's a really nice running part there. So I'll show you how to play that. I'll show you how to play the intro and the accompaniment underneath the first part and then the second part. Now I've written all this down with tab on a PDF, and you can get that by following the link in the description box below. There are 2 sheets, so the first sheet will cover the intro and the accompaniment under part 1, and the second sheet will cover under part 2. So make sure you download that, that would be really useful, especially for the bit under part 2. Before I show you how to play these sections, I'm going to explain to you about the rhythm. Now it's the same rhythm throughout, and the time signature is 6/8, which means 6/8 notes in each bar. So in 6/8 it's really divided into 2 beats, 2 dotted quarter notes, so 1.5. A dotted quarter note is 1.5 beats, so you've got 2 dotted quarter notes. So that's where you accent those. I'll show you this is an accent sign. So an accent just means you emphasize that. So you go 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. So it's got a bit of a swing in it, 6/8 time. And you can hear that throughout the theme. So for these bass lines, those dotted quarter notes are broken down into 2 1/8 notes and 2 1/16 notes. So that makes one of the quarter notes. And then that's repeated for the rest of the measure. That pattern runs throughout. So it's so just get that timing in your head, and that's all you need to know rhythm wise for all of the bass lines. Right, well I'll play you the intro first and then I'll explain how to play it. Now it's quite interesting, this intro, because it changes from minor to major. So that's minor, because if we're starting on the C here, and that second note is the minor third. And then when it changes, that note there is the major third. So we go from minor third to major third. So minor, major. So that third is the only note that changes between those 2 patterns. So it changes from the minor third to the major third. So I'll show you how to play that. So we'll start with a G. So we'll start with the high G, so the 12th fret of the G string, and then down to C. And that C is 10, fret 10 of the D string, and then the minor third, 13 of the D string, and then up to fret number 10 of the G string. So, and we just repeat that pattern, those 4 notes. So 8th note, 8th note, 16th note, 16th note. With me after 3, 1, 2, 3. And then to play the next bit, the major bit, we just shift a whole hand down a half tone, a semitone. So we start with our little finger on G, back down to C, and then this time the major third. And those 3 notes there are 9, 10 and 12 on the G string. With me after 3, 1, 2, 3. We'll play through the whole intro now. So start with your 3rd finger on the 12th fret of the G string, so G, and we play that pattern 4 times, and then we play the next pattern, the major pattern, 4 times. So after 3, 1, 2, 3. Shift. Okay, that's the intro, so I'll show you now the parts that are underneath the main tune for part 1. You can look at this bass line here as a sort of question and answer with the main theme. So the theme goes... When we hold that note on there, then we play this bass line here, this kind of answering phrase, which is... So it's one pattern played 4 times, and it's the same as we played for the intro, but on different strings. So on the intro we played that minor pattern, and here we just start on the D. So the 12th fret of the D string. So the theme, and then, okay, so with me we'll just try that. So if you have your 3rd finger on D, and we're going to play that minor pattern for the intro. So 1, 2, 3. Again, 1, 2, 3. So that's the first answering phrase underneath the tune, part 1. And the next answering phrase we start on C, so fret 10 of the D string with our 1st finger. It's a slightly different pattern here. And you'll hear that that's what we use right at the end of the theme. So we start with 1st finger on 10 of the D string, and we go down to 10 on the A string, 11 and 13. So again, the same rhythmic pattern, 8th note, 8th note, 16th note, 16th note. So 10, 10, 11, 13. So go with me, 1, 2, 3. And those 2 patterns, the first one starting on D, and the next one starting on C, we just alternate between those underneath the main theme of part 1. So first we start on the D, then the C, D, C, D, C. So that's the whole of the intro in part 1. So that's the first sheet on the PDF. If you haven't got that, you can download that in the description below. And now we'll move on to part 2. Now this whole bass line here is a brilliant bass line. It's a sort of broken chord arpeggio pattern. So it's really a study in itself, this next bit. It might take you several weeks or even months to be able to play this one and absolutely nail this one, because it is quite tricky. So I'll play it for you first, and then I'll break it down into stages. Right, well this is broken down into 2 lots of 8 measures, and the first 6 measures of each 8 are the same each time. So you just learn the first section, and then it's the tag at the end really that changes the last 2 measures each time. So if we look at the first 8 measures, now every 2 measures we shift. So we can start with our 1st finger on C, on the D string, so fret 10. So 10, and then fret 11 of the E string, and then 11 of the A string and 13 of the A string. And remember, exactly the same rhythmic pattern as before, so 2 8th notes and 2 16th notes. So with me, 1, 2, 3. Just keep repeating that. You kind of have to jump with your 2nd finger. try barring it if you find that easier. I don't find it easy to get a clean note for the next note. So that first section repeated. 1, 2, 3. And then what we actually do before we change to the next chord, we do, that's 10, 11, 11, 10. So the whole of those two measures. So with me, 1, 2, 3. And again, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's the first measure, and then the second measure, we stay in the same position, 13 with our little finger on the A string. That first bit, so 13, 11, 10, 11, 13. With me, 1, 2, 3. And then to end that measure, so that's the second half of the measure, so 13, 11, 10, 13. So with me, 1, 2, 3. Again, 1, 2, 3. So the whole of that measure. With me, 1, 2, 3. So those two measures, which we play in the same position, are so try all that with me, and I know it's quite tricky to try and remember all of that, so you may need to go away and practice that. The PDF is definitely useful for this bit because it's quite hard to memorise it all, so you can kind of reference that. So, but we'll try all of that. So first finger on the 10th fret of the D string, and after 3, 1, 2, 3. And that's the first two measures. If we move on to the next two measures, we shift down. So we start with our little finger on the 11th fret of the A string, and we move down to 8 on the E string, 8 on the A string, 10, 11, all on the A string. So with me, 1, 2, 3. And again, at the end of this measure, we change it slightly. So, and that on the A string is 8, 11, down to 10. So with me, that measure, 1, 2, 3. Again, 1, 2, 3. And then this measure here, which is the fourth measure. So 10, 8 on the E string, 11 on the E string, 8 on the A string, and then back up to 10. With me, 1, 2, 3. And I'll show you the second half of that measure. So that's 10, 8, 11, 10. With me, 1, 2, 3. So the whole of that measure, 1, 2, 3. With me, 1, 2, 3. And that's the first four measures. So I'll play the whole lot for you. remember there's one jump in the middle, there's one shift. So that's the first 4 measures. So you'll probably need to go away and practice that one, but I'll just move on. After that we jump right down to our little finger on fret number 6, the E flat. So 6 on the A string, 4 on the E string, 3 on the A string, 5 on the A string, up to 6 again. With me, 1, 2, 3. And I'm playing this on the 5 string, but you can do it on the 4 because I'm just not using the B string at all. So you can play that on a 4 or a 5 or a 6. So, and that's just 5, 6 at the end of that measure. So with me, the whole measure, 1, 2, 3. And again, 1, 2, 3. And then the next measure. And actually that measure is the only place that the rhythm changes. We just have 8th notes there, we don't have the 16th note. So. And that's on the D string, 3 down to the E flat, which is fret 6 of the A string. So 3, 3, 6, 5, 5, 6. So 5 on the D string. With me, 1, 2, 3. Again, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so those 2 measures. Again. So with me, 1, 2, 3. And then we jump up with our first finger to fret 10 on the D string. So that pattern's the same one that you'll notice underneath part 1. So 4 times, and that completes that first 8 measures. So if we move on to the next 8 measures, remember the first 6 measures were just done at exactly the same. And then for the last 2 measures, we play this pattern. We play that down the octave, so 8 notes lower. So play that down with me. So first finger on the 3rd fret of the A string, which is a C. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that covers part 2, and that is pretty tricky to play, I must say. So make sure you get the PDF, which you can download below. Take that in measure by measure, spend a bit of time, and then just build it up. Add the next measure on, and play those 2 together until you're comfortable. Then add the next measure and next measure, and finally you'll be able to do the whole lot. It's a really great part, and it sounds brilliant underneath the theme. You can play it on any bass instrument. You can play it on the left hand of the piano or double bass, even a tuba. Sound great obviously on cello. So see how you get on with playing that, and please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear how you're getting on, if you're finding that particularly tricky or if you really like that one. Please share this video with anyone you think might like it. Obviously subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I bring a new lesson out every week. And also you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. You can find all the details about that in the description. So I've put loads of stuff in the description of this video, so you might want to read that. Also, if you need help with arpeggios, with the broken chords, with your reading, then I've got my Bass Beginner's Guide. There's details of that on the website, so gregsbassshed.com. If you look on the Bass Beginner Guide, there's details of where you can buy that. If you want any help, just leave a comment below. This is Greg from Greg's Bass Shed. See you next week.